everyone. Hello. So thank you again for returning back to Into the Room. And I'm excited. We're excited to have our special guest once again, the great puppeteer and visual artist, Mr. Brad Brewer. So glad to have him. If you remember from before, Brad has a very extensive background in working in theater, film, and television. He is a graduate of Pratt Institute as well. He's formed his own puppet troupe called the Brewery Puppet Troupe. He did that back in 1973, and from working with his own puppet troupe, it opened up many doors for him. He actually has traveled extensively around the world, in America, in Europe, in Africa. He's just done a lot of amazing things. Has worked with Frank Oz, Jim Henson, Muppets, as well as Mr. Rogers himself, and a whole host of other prominent people that work in the entertainment industry. But I'm going to let him tell some of his story himself. And this evening, he's going to show us some of the techniques in making a puppet, as well as how you even operate a puppet. I've never known to see that in life other than watching Sesame Street. So let's welcome our friend and special guest again, Mr. Brad Brewer, who goes by Brad.
Right. Good evening. Good evening.
Hi. Hi, Brad.
Hi.
So, Brad, tell us, what are like the fundamentals in making a puppet? Do you get a vision of it first of what it is that you want to create? Do you sketch it first, or do you just pick up materials and start going at it?
It depends on what project I'm working on. Sometimes I use sketches. Most of the puppets that I build come from a sketch.
Mm-hmm.
And this illustration behind me is something that I'm currently working on for an exhibit I'm preparing for later this year. So in this case, the watercolors are done, but sometimes they're just simple line drawings and gives me a direction. And the puppet themselves, I follow it to some degree, but, as I'm building it, it might take me in another direction.
Oh, okay. So, what materials do you use? What kind of materials do you use?
A variety of materials. One thing about puppet building is everybody has their own technique.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pattern that we might follow, but each builder has its own technique, and they take them to different parts of their puppet building. A lot of my puppets are built out of foam rubber, and this is how they begin. This is foam rubber here, and this comes in a very flat sheet, and by making a circle and cutting triangles on each side,
Mm-hmm.
you cut it out, you glue both surfaces, and when it dries, you put them together, and it forms what becomes like part of the puppet head. You draw a bigger circle, and you get a bigger piece. And what I do is I fit this inside, and this becomes the dome of the head. And from this, a piece of foam might be used to make a nose, which is basically just taking some foam, which is what this starts out to be. And sometimes just by flushing it out, you have a nose. And
Wow.
when you work with it enough, it comes out, it's something like this. And in this case, this is foam, and an eye would be used.
Wow.
And just covering it with a jersey fabric.
And you cover it with jersey fabric.
Right.
So when is there a special type of glue that you use, or you sew that all together?
Contact cement. Contact cement is what I use, but some people use a hot glue gun. Some people use Elmer's glue. Everybody has their own technique, and they find what works best for them. This puppet is a little bit more involved. This is one that's being reburnished. This is a character that's already existed, and she just had a facelift and some new eyes, and I'm about to give her some hair, and I'm not sure what her hairstyle would be.
Uh-huh. Is that the puppet Martha? One of the
Martha.
sisters?
Yeah.
Martha?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because it's how many? Is it three sisters?
There's
Hi,
Martha. There's Martha, Lucille, and
Lucille.
Hazel.
And who?
Hazel.
Hazel. Martha, Lucille. So what was the inspiration of those three names?
Well, they are names that I remember growing up. I think we all
Oh,
knew
okay.
a Martha. We all knew a Lucille. So,
Lucy.
right,
Like
right,
BB King, Lucy.
right, right.
They grew up on the block.
Well, we patterned them, unlike the Crowtations. The
Uh,
Crowtations were developed as individual characters, and it was only a few years later that they became a singing group. These female crows were built as like an opening act for the Crowtations. And so
oh.
we've done music with them. Sometimes we would use music by Whitney Houston, the Pointer Sisters, and then our own characterization of their voices and everything. So they would be the opening act, and they're going to be featured in the next project that we're working on. They've never really been featured before. They were always kind of like background characters.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's real cool. So, so do you ever get a lot of requests for the sisters, or mostly for the Crowtations?
For the Crowtations.
For the Crowtations.
Mm-hmm.
Dion has a question. He wants to know, do you control all the puppets for a single show?
No, no. I mean,
Yeah.
we have a lot of puppets, and it depends on what the show itself is. We've done shows with just the Crowtations, which are 4 characters.
Mhm.
Sometimes we have additional characters. We have a program called the Big Time Soul Review.
Mm.
And so the Big Time Soul Review is patterned after the shows that used to be at the Apollo Theater. So we have an MC, and we have like an opening act, which for this case is the sisters, and the Crowtations are the headliners. So they're presented like that.
Uh-huh.
And the 4 of us do multiple characters. So we do different characters, different character voices.
Okay. So so when you all are on stage, is it like a lot of banter back and forth, little comedic chops, and then you guys go into a song, or?
Yeah, yeah. They come out
Yeah.
on a song, and in between we'll have some pattern. Everything is scripted though. So
Oh, okay.
scripted, and if somebody ad-libs and it works, we keep it in, so that
Mm.
the next show you would hear that. And
Mm.
and that sometimes we've just done music. Sometimes we're in a situation where it's just music. If we're in a situation where our time is limited, then
Mm-hmm.
we kind of decide how we're going to go about doing that. When we open for people, usually it's like about 20 minutes. And so, it's a lot of music during
Mm.
that time.
When you were on Broadway, somebody giving the hearts. Thank you for the hearts. When you were on Broadway, was that strictly just you guys doing the music, or did that allow a chance? Because I know you was with the Harlem Boys
Boys Choir.
Choir,
Boys
right?
Choir, Harlem.
So
Uh,
was that strictly music, or did it allows some time for you guys to do like a little skit, Cheech and Chong kind of thing back and forth? Or was it
Yeah,
just strictly music?
well, Joffrey Holder uh,
Hmm.
directed the show, and Joffrey
Hmm.
Holder directed the original production of The Wiz on Broadway, starring Stephanie Mills, and he won the Tony Award for, I believe, the best choreography and costume.
Hmm.
And so he directed this particular show, and we just followed him. He wanted us to do one number, which is what we did,
Hmm.
and it was preceded by dialogue. So we did about 15 minutes of dialogue, and half of that 15 minutes would be improvised, and the rest would be scripted. You know, you have to remember that we rehearse constantly, and our
Right.
rehearsals doesn't necessarily mean we're sitting around with the puppets.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're watching something. We've done a lot of dialogue just looking at like The Sopranos, and we're playing around with it. So it could be anything that motivates us. And without the puppets, we may be sitting around just BSing around and everything, and
Hmm.
something might come out of that. And so when we begin to rehearse, we might throw that in. But our rehearsals tend to be mostly choreography, practicing the choreography. It's very detailed, very intricate, and it requires us to be in condition for that. So a lot of the rehearsals for that. But for this Broadway show, we had 20 minutes,
Hmm.
and so we were able to do that. When we worked with Melvin Van Peebles, it was just music. There wasn't any dialogue. It was a one-man show with Harold Nicholas of the famed Nicholas Brothers, and
Hmm.
so it was a monologue the entire show, and the show was 2.5 hours long, and it was a monologue, and the puppets were like the Greek chorus, and so Melvin had written music for the show, and so we performed that music. So there wasn't any dialogue; it was just basically singing.
Wow. So 3.5. Wow. So I that had to take a lot of rehearsal for that,
Yeah, yeah.
for a 2.5 hour show. And
But
so,
remember, we know each other. We've worked with before we even did Melvin's show. At that time, as a group, we had been together for 5 years. The company had been together about 10 years. But the performance that made up the Crowtations, we were just kind of just coming together. This was in 1984, and
oh wow.
and so two of the members wasn't even in the group yet. One was in the group, the other one wasn't. So we kind of knew each other, and
Mhm.
we had just, we were able to kind of step in and do what he wanted. So
Mhm.
whereas it may have taken a lot of time, it didn't
Mhm.
take that much time at all because we were familiar with each other.
Mhm. So how did you meet your members of the Crowtations? I mean, how did you guys meet? How did you come together?
Uh, they heard about the troupe, and they came to audition. They wanted to work with me, and so I would see what they can do, and I would make a decision whether or not I thought they had any potential.
Mhm.
Um, Marvin Brown, who was our production manager, was introduced to me by Woody King, a producer
Mhm.
of Black theater in New York, and he came to me as a production manager. But eventually, he evolved into one of our premier puppeteers. Someone else was a stand-up comic who did some acting off Broadway, and he saw us and he inquired about us, and he came and worked with us, and we practiced with him, or I practiced with him for about 6 months before he did a show. So
Wow.
they just, we find them, we look for them, and
Mhm.
and at some point that core group came together, the four of us, and whenever we did any shows that required outside the Crowtations, we had additional stock members who we called on to do the shows.
Mhm.
So we had like a kind of like a two division. We had the
Mhm.
Crowtations, which were the core group, and then additional puppeteers. We had a couple of puppeteers who worked with us all the time when we did theater.
During the 80s, when you all were establishing yourselves, what was the sentiment within the African American community scene for Black men doing puppetry? What was the sentiment?
Interest, because they had never seen that before. And so, you know, they gave us kind of like the benefit of the doubt, like, what is this all about? And sometimes, well, most of the time it worked to our advantage because they didn't know what to expect. And so when we would begin our performance, it really worked to our advantage. And fortunately, the Crowtations are captivating, and people picked up on them and liked them. You know, we had a situation where we were opening for Chaka Khan at Webster Hall, Lower Manhattan, and it was on a Saturday night, and she was scheduled to do 2 shows that night, one at 8 o'clock and the other one is 11 o'clock. Now, Webster Hall is a very famous club, and a lot of performers have come through there, and we opened for a lot of people there. And so she didn't arrive until around midnight. And by then, they let everybody in. They let the 8 o'clock show was in there, and they let the 11 o'clock show. And the orchestra had no seats. It was basically a dance floor. So they're playing music and everything, and it's like a disco or, you know, people dancing. But after a while, you heard this stomping. We want Chaka. We want Chaka. So when she finally arrives, the stage manager comes to our dressing room and says, okay, she's here. You guys got to go on. And he's saying that while we can hear very loudly them calling her. So we go down on the stage, and we're all wearing black, and we're wearing hoods and everything. And so the audience can't really see us when we come out on the stage. And the announcer, oh, ladies and gentlemen, the Crowtations. And almost in unison, you know, F the Crowtations. That didn't really make us feel that good. But when the lights came up on them, and all you saw were them, and I don't remember what song we used, but it was a long note, and the lights came on very slowly, and we won the audience over, you know. And we didn't do the full half hour, which is what we always did. Got out of there like in 15 minutes or something, you know, before we wore out our welcome.
Right.
But it was a combination of us as Black men doing puppets. I mean, it was just a unique image that people hadn't seen. And some of the, I think a lot of the people that saw us there had seen us in the city because we were known in New York City. We'd perform all over and everything. So, you know, just one example of how it could go south. And then, you know, just seeing us in the Crows kind of took us out of that dump.
Right. They were pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
The first performance that you all did was outside of New York. Where was it?
You mean
like the
on
first?
the outside?
Yeah, like what city did you guys travel to? Because I know you traveled within the U.S. a lot. What was the first city? Do you remember?
Wow. The first city that we, well, when we, before the Crows, I mean, we had performed in Jersey, New Jersey, and in Connecticut. So surrounding areas, Delaware, up and down the East Coast. And at that point, we had been as far south as South Carolina, and as far as north as probably Connecticut. I don't think we had gone to Boston by then. But around this area, the tri-state area, which is what we call it, we did a lot of performances. Long before the Crows, we traveled with a puppet stage that was 25 feet wide and 10 feet high. And it was portable, and it took us about 4 hours to set it up. And we were doing the show that we were doing was the Jackson 5 meets Malcolm X. And so we had a lot of puppets for that. And we would go into theaters and usually the day before and set it up. So we didn't do a lot of traveling beyond that because it was very, at that time, even then it was expensive, and we had 7 puppeteers and a stage manager. So we had 8 people that would travel with us when we did those shows. The Crowtations were a little bit more streamlined, it was just the 4 of us, maybe the 5th if we needed a stage manager to call the cues for lighting and sound. But it was a lot of traveling just in a localized area.
Right. A lot of invites.
Mm-hmm.
So performing in Central Park, and when you guys first started performing in Central Park, you said about how many minutes per show that you guys would do?
Well, before we got to Central Park, we had a theater in, well, it wasn't a theater, it was a church in downtown Brooklyn. And this church was a landmark Methodist church. And in its basement, they had this beautiful theater. And so we became residents at the theater. And we did shows during the week for school groups. Schools would come and see us. But the weekends, it was a little bit more difficult to get an audience. And so one day we decided to go down to the mall downtown Brooklyn around Flatbush Avenue and just did some stuff with the Crows, and other people would hand out flyers, come to see our show, and they would give us money, and we would say no, we don't want the money, just come and see the show. You can pay when you come and see the show. And so we did that, and the first day we did it, we went back to the theater and did the show. And after we were packing up everything, because our next show wasn't going to be for about 2 or 3 days, someone said, "What do you want to do with this money?" And I said, "What money?" Apparently, we had gotten like $70 from people just leaving dollar bills on the radio or whatever. And so I just divided it up. But I looked at the 3 other guys who did the Crowtations and said, "Hey, let's see if we can make some money." And so we went to Greenwich Village, Washington Square Park, and we just took the puppets out and we had some music and we just started fooling around and we got some people coming in. We had a big crowd. And so we went there every week and every weekend, and we got these tremendous crowds, and we would be making like $2,000, $1,500, and we would do these shows. We'd do shows. Some of our friends would hang out around with us, and so we were hanging out, talking trash, smoking cigarettes, and doing the puppets. And we just kind of from there moved to a place called the South Street Seaport, and then eventually into Central Park. So by the time we got to Central Park, we looked out for a spot. We had a couple of places, but we found one on 72nd Street by the fountain, right upstairs from the fountain. And that 72nd Street was a pathway that took you from east to west Central Park. Like on the east side, it was 5th Avenue. On the west side, it was Central Park West. And so people that could get to one side or the other would come down the street and they would see us. And we had several news stations come and do a story on us, and we became regulars there. We were there every Saturday and Sunday that we were in town, and it was not raining. If it was raining, we didn't go, and we didn't go out during the winter time. It was really from about May, the last part of April, until like the last part of October. If we were in town on the weekends, we would go there, and we started pushing ourselves because the more shows we did, we made more money. But at the same time, we were able to kind of sharpen what we did, because every performance was almost like a rehearsal for us. And so we had this repertoire of songs, dozens of songs that we had choreographed. And we knew which songs worked with audiences. and we
Oh.
became these street performers. This was unintentional. And when you're a street performer, it's the challenge to keep the audience because there's so many distractions. There's other people, there's airplanes, there's people coming by, there's radios, there's a whole lot of stuff. There's little kids. And so it became a challenge for us. And we became more disciplined as performers. One thing that led me to be a little bit hesitant was that we were no longer using a proscenium. People could see us. But we didn't look out into the audience as we performed. We looked up at the puppet. And so people might check us out for a few minutes or whatever, but ultimately their attention would go up to the puppets.
Right, because they start focusing.
Right, and that's when we knew we were really doing what we had to do. We were doing the right thing, you know. And it was a little bit, you know, I was very self-conscious about that because as a puppeteer, you know, we're in the shadows, you know, and nobody can see you. And that's how I liked it, you know. So being out there, it was almost like we were, to me, that I was out there like in my underwear performing, you know, just very, very self-conscious. But I got over that. One of the ways I got over it was putting on dark glasses. So I felt like I was behind something, you know. But it made us very good because we were able to adapt to any type of situation. When we did TV shows, all of us was very, very well versed in how to perform for the camera. Performing for the camera is different than live performances.
Absolutely.
The camera, you look for us, we're looking at a monitor. And when you look at the monitor, everything is opposite. So you're looking at a monitor, and let's say you come up to my right to talk to the puppet. The monitor is telling me to have the puppet turn to the left.
Right.
I have to remember you're over this way.
Right.
So it's really kind of working. I mean, when I first started working with the Muppets, before I even did anything on camera with them, I must have practiced with them for about 6 months or so. And by doing that, you get to learn all of that stuff with the camera, and you're able to kind of work through it. So Central Park not only became a place where we were able to kind of really pull ourselves together as a unit, but we made a lot of contacts, and a lot of people saw us there, and that was something that we hadn't really anticipated. We never really thought about that, but people would see us there, and you know, we were able to become self-sufficient. You know, we were doing these jobs. We were able to get a manager, an agent, and we did a lot of television, did a lot of films in Central Park, did a commercial, and we had a core audience that waited for us. They would be there every week, waiting for a different audience, but they knew about us. People from out of town knew about us, and so they would come and they would be waiting for us when we got there.
So you had built up your reputation. You had a reputation that you guys had built up over so many. And how many years did you all perform down in Central Park?
Oh man, maybe like 15 years. Maybe 15 years. And we did 3 shows an hour. 3 15-minute shows, and we started at noon and we finished at 7 p.m. So we did that Saturdays and Sundays.
So that took a lot of stamina to be gone and using your arm.
We started to stop smoking. We stopped smoking from doing that. And it became, you know, we never saw ourselves as street performers.
Right.
And that's not to put that down. There's an art there. But we fell into that. And then it became a challenge. We learned about each other's movements. And so we were choreographed, our bodies were choreographed as much as the puppet. I knew how to get around somebody with the puppet looking like this. while I'm kind of like this, and we're all kind of pushed in together. Jerome Robbins, a choreographer. Jerome Robbins choreographed West Side Story, the original Broadway show, and the movie, the original movie, choreographed that. He used to come down and watch us perform, not for the puppets, but watching our movement as puppeteers. As we were trying to get that shot, we were trying to get the puppets in and out and everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And he came up to us several times and would talk to us and ask us how we did this and, you know, where we were going and all that stuff. I don't know, you know, we took it as a big compliment. We all knew who he was, you know, so.
What? So did you guys go see the West Side Story and say, oh, that's our move?
No. I don't think he used, it's not that he used any of what we did in his show. I mean, by then, you know, he was Jerome Robbins, you know,
right.
You know, but I think he was, as a choreographer, he found it interesting watching. We had a lot of directors, a lot of theater people would come and watch us for whatever reason. And we would recognize them. They would be off on the side watching what we were doing, you know. So that came from being out in the open and not being behind a proscenium where we would.
Right. That is awesome. So I have a few more questions, but if anyone wants to come in the room and ask Brad, because I see some of your questions. I know Dion has a question. I see Cassie has a question. If you guys want to come in, then let me know and I'll send you the invite to bring you in so you can ask him directly, or I can ask him directly. Just let you know, I don't want to deny you that opportunity to talk to the man directly. So the choreography, do you have to be able to operate the puppets? Do you have to have some form of rhythm, correct?
Well, I guess so. It depends on what your character is doing. I mean, doing the crows and how we did that, it was the whole concept evolved, and by doing the music, just the whole idea of choreographing them like the Temptations.
Right.
So how do you do that? The puppets don't have any legs, and a lot of the choreography is stepping and everything. This is one way that we used to practice choreography for the show, for the crows. We would do the choreography ourselves as though we were like the background singers of the Temptations. And we would, without the puppets, we would do all of the choreography. A lot of it I would make up. Like if I was choreographing the Temptations, what move would I use? And we would do that as ourselves first. And then we would transfer that to the puppets. And how does that work? And then we would exaggerate, because they are, you know, they're like cartoon characters and stuff. So we would kind of exaggerate some of the moves and all that sort of stuff. But once we locked it in, once we did it, we locked it in. And then we had to make adjustments for television. So if we were doing a choreography where the puppets was coming in and out and in and out, on a camera, you don't really see that perspective. So for us, we would be on an angle from the camera so that we could do that, so it would be more pronounced. Okay. So we would work with, no matter what TV show we did, we would work with the director. I would spend a few minutes with the director and explain to them what we would do. And when we would rehearse, I would have the guys rehearse, and I would sit with the director in the control room and show him where we want to go and how we want to do that. And they were pretty, you know, they were like, okay, tell us what you're looking for.
What you need, right. Were you the main choreographer for the group, or did
the only
like you was the only one?
Right.
Why is that?
Want to be Temptation? Yeah.
You didn't share the choreography. Let somebody.
Listen, let me tell you something. I've been ready to jump up on the stage with the Temptations. I can't sing like them, but I do the choreography. choreography. I was ready many times from when I first saw them when I was 14. I was ready to jump up on the stage. If anybody dropped out, I knew the choreography, you know. Now that didn't happen. They never called on me to come and do that, but I was ready in case they did.
Right. Wait a minute, didn't they do the song, "Oh, I Wish It Would"? Right?
Right,
Isn't that
right,
one of the
right.
Have the Crows ever performed that?
No.
No.
Some songs, I was very selective, and we not only did the Temptations, we did the Dramatics. I mean, we've done the Whispers, you know, whatever choreography, whatever song visually worked for me. So that was it. We never did any songs by the Spinners. We did a couple of R. Kelly songs. One of the most popular songs we did was "I Believe I Can Fly," and that was choreographed. And the
Really?
way choreographed, yeah, where the youngest crow sang that, and in the beginning of the songs, the older crows kind of come in one by one. And we're looking at the young blood. We're watching the young blood sing that. And at the very end, he kind of, "I believe I can fly, I can fly, I can fly." And he backs up, and we were right there with him. And so you see that group picture. So, you know, we were able to convey who they were as characters through the music we selected.
Amazing. That's awesome. Do you have any footage of that around? Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. Dion says, awesome. Let's see. Cassie wants to know, Cassie, do you want me to bring you in? I can bring you in, or I can ask the question for you. I'm gonna send you an invite, and then you can ask them directly if you like. Hold on for a second. Yeah. Okay. So you handle all the choreo. Who picked the songs? You primarily, obviously, picked the songs. Yeah. Were they just based off of your favorite songs, or was it songs that you thought would be good for the stage?
A little bit of both. Mostly what I thought we would be able to interpret with the puppets and how that would work with the puppets. That was mostly what it was. A lot of my favorite songs just didn't work with the puppets, you know.
Okay, T wants to come in and ask you a question. I just sent her the invite. Last time she missed it. She said this time she was ready. T, I sent you the invite, so I'll hopefully you'll accept it, so then you can come in and ask him your question. Cassie wants to know, how would you describe the magic of puppetry? Because puppets really seem lifelike.
Without realizing it, your imagination takes over. And we've seen the most cynical people give in to the magic of puppetry. And puppetry is part illusion. You know, you can have a puppet like this, no moving mouth or anything. And yet, if you're talking to him and you're saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?" You almost can see, you forget that the mouth is not moving. In your mind, you're thinking it's moving, but it's not. And so puppetry depends on the skill of the manipulator, the puppeteer, and how you interpret. It is like dance. When you have a ballet and hand motions and the movement of your body tells a story. This is very evident when you look at, like Alvin Ailey Dance Company and
Right.
and the forces of nature, and you see them
Right.
dancing through their bodies. They tell you a story, and
Right.
puppetry is like that. Puppetry doesn't necessarily have to be dialogue. Puppetry is an image, and it's a figure that's animated, and so it
Mm-hmm.
gives out the impression of being alive. And once the audience, particularly adults, get into watching it, then they forget all the other stuff. We used to perform at an after-hour spot in Brooklyn, and we would go on like around 3 o'clock in the morning, and so of course there's nothing. Adults,
Right.
everybody's partying, everybody's getting drunk and whatever, and we would do a show. We would do like a 20-minute show. We would wind up doing the same show several hours later for an elementary school.
Uh-huh.
The same thing.
So then the material, did you said the same material, so you didn't have to alter you kept it clean then, because if you was doing it for.
It wasn't even about keeping it.
Hi, Mr. Lee. Okay.
We
Go
just
ahead.
performed. And so the puppets didn't, we didn't do any X-ray thing. We didn't like curse with the puppets or anything.
Right.
It wasn't necessary because the characters themselves conveyed this kind of attitude. And so we never had to curse with the puppets. We didn't have to do anything. We did have one incident where we were doing a song by Oscar Brown Jr., who his music was a great source of inspiration for me. And we were doing Signifying Monkey. And Signifying Monkey, we changed it to Signifying Street Rat. So we had this street rat. We had this rat, we had a cat, and we had a dog. So instead of the monkey, the lion, and the elephant, we substituted because it was an urban setting. So we were doing this. So at the very last line, Marvin was doing, I think he was doing the dog. And the dog, no, he was doing the cat. And the cat was the antagonist to the rat. The rat had sent the cat to go fight with the dog. The dog beat him up. And so the cat came back to the rat and was still ridiculing him. And at the very end, the cat said, if you and your funky children want to stay around, you better stay in that garbage can, something like that. So when Marvin said that, it didn't sound like funky. It sounded like something else. And all the kids said, ooh, because they thought he cursed. And so we had to explain to the principal that wasn't happening, or not the principal, the theater management. But we never cursed. We didn't have to,
That's good. That's good. You kept it clean. And
we
how did the say what?
I said we cursed a lot.
Well, yeah. Hi, DJ Dirty Baby. So, T, I resent the invite for you to come. Now, a lot of people are coming in. Hi, Pixie. Hi, everyone. Is that you, T?
Yeah, I'm here. You see me?
Yeah,
no, we can't see you.
I can see her.
Oh, you see her?
Yeah.
How come I can't see her?
There's a pretty smile.
Did you hear that, T? How come I can't see you, T?
I don't know.
Do you? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, as long as, can you see him?
I can see him and I can see you as well.
Oh, you can see him as well? Okay, well, you can, and I'm the only one who can't see you. Do you have to?
Well, I have a question for him.
Yeah, so, go ahead and ask the question.
Okay, so after watching your previous interview and listening to all your accolades, are you able to say at the final curtain call, are you able to say, job well done? If it's the final call and you could tell yourself, job well done, or you just feel like you got so much more to do?
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot more to do, and that would be for me a question or a statement that someone else would make, because I still consider myself a student of puppetry.
Yeah.
So I like to think that, I'm still learning and I'm still trying to do different things and improve. And that's one of the great things about art. You don't really retire from that. You just try to do different things and you try to be better. So I consider myself a
So
student.
just keep evolving as
Right.
long as you can.
Right.
Awesome. Awesome. That's the only question I had.
Okay, so this is with Instagram, it's always amazing. So everyone can see me, correct?
Yeah.
Now here's the irony. Your screen has frozen on my end, so I only see the frozen picture of you, Brad.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
One moment in time. So, yeah, I'm not going to worry about it. Just keep going. So, what was it like performing in Singapore? I know that you mentioned in our last interview that overseas, puppetry tends to lean towards the adult audience. What was it like performing for them? I mean, were they very responsive, or were they just kind of like stare and watch? How was it?
Well, when I say that Europe and even Asia, we've been to Asia for that part. When I say that it was adults appreciate the art form, it's not because they're doing material that's necessarily very sophisticated. They recognize the art form as legitimate theater and not exclusively a children's program. So when you go over there, there's a respect for the art form that's sometimes missing over here. And so we experienced that. We experienced, particularly with the stage crews, ready for us and ready to do whatever we need to do. Whereas sometimes, especially in our early days here, people would be expecting us to be coming there with just a little shoebox type of stage and not ready for the size of our performing stage and all the technical needs that we needed, So it was more of an appreciation for the art form. And they did look at us. I mean, again, for American Black guys, it was something that just was a spectacle to them. And once they saw the show, then they, they settled into what we were doing. And our music is universal. No matter what we're doing, jazz, R&B, it's universal and it's appreciated all over, So it gave us a little sense from them, a sense of being hip, different from the other puppets they may have seen, and our music at the core of it. So, it was well received,
Wonderful. So I know you have an upcoming project that you're preparing for, right?
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about it? It's jazz oratory, correct?
Jazz oratory. And jazz oratory is a journey in storytelling told through the music of jazz. So what I've done is I've selected masterpieces from jazz legends. So we have music by Miles Davis, New Rumba from his Sketches of Spain album. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. I selected a song by Art Blakey, which we're going to use to tell the story of the Freedom Riders back in the 60s. And that segment is called Freedom Bus. So the Freedom Bus becomes the central prop that moves around and everything. And it gives a little bit of a insight into the dangers of the Freedom Riders during that time, and it's told through the music. The show is going to be presented in 3 acts. The third act will be Hakeem and Gretel, and it's an urban version of Hansel and Gretel. And the music we use is Duke Ellington music, but not known Duke Ellington music. You know, we don't use like A Train or Satin Doll or something. We use some music by him that I've selected that I think helps tell the story of those 2 children. So it's really selecting jazz compositions and telling a story. It's something that I used to do as a child. I used to listen to my dad play, like Duke Ellington and Count Basie, and I would literally lay on the floor listening to it and imagine a story to those songs. And so this is what this show is representing.
So it'll be probably like a 2-hour show.
Yeah. But before we do that, I received a grant to do an exhibit of the making of that show. So there'll be a visual telling of that story of the whole show through art pieces that I built, and some of the puppets will be part of the display, and then there will be the actual performance.
Very nice. That's